With a career in the Navy Band in Washington, D.C., spanning more than 3 decades as a composer and pianist, a voluminous collection of compositions still performed worldwide, Master Chief Jerry Ascione credits his success to the technical and philosophical education received at the Dana School of Music at Youngstown State University. Still active in retirement, he is chief composer and arranger for the New England Wind Symphony and Capitol Jazz Orchestra in Concord, New Hampshire, as well as composer and arranger with the W.D. Packard Concert Band in Warren, Ohio. He also teaches applied composition at the Anne Arundel Community College in Arnold, Maryland. His piece, We Are, For Upon Their Shoulders We Stand, will be premiering at the 2025 Mission Love Music Stephen L. Gage Legacy Concert in May 2025. Jerry, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your piece, We Are, For Upon Their Shoulders We Stand, which you've written for and will be guest conducting at the 2025 Mission Love Music Legacy Concert. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself. What were your early experiences in music, and when did you know it was your passion and your career?
Well, I am originally from Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and I started piano at the age of 5. And I can't tell you that I was really that enthusiastic about it. I was all into baseball and, the Pittsburgh Pirates and all that. My first piano teacher was really good, and she was all about basics and reading. She was really heavy into reading, which was great because that served me well in later years. I started trumpet when I was 8, 9, and I liked it. I played well, but then I heard an album that a friend of mine had called The Magnificent Seven. I hope I don't get in trouble by saying the name of the album. And during the course of the album, I heard who I later found out was a legendary studio musician, French horn player, Vincent DeRosa. And I thought, wow, that's what I want to play. And, it's such a huge sound. It was just gorgeous. And in high school, I had the chance to switch over from trumpet to horn. And then I attended the Dana School of Music. I started there in the fall of 1970, studied with Lois Hopkins, and then I think fall quarter, back then we used to be on quarters instead of semesters. Fall quarter, I started with Bill Slocum, and I think he really set the tone for this is how you become a professional musician. And he was an incredibly inspirational teacher. Really, as were all the teachers at Dana. I can't say enough about Dana. I think Dana School of Music is absolutely one of the gems of the country, of the world. I mean, it's such a phenomenal institute of music. And but I kept playing piano, and as it happened, piano paid, or playing piano, I should say, paid for 95% of my college tuition. I played with polka bands. I did some accompanying on recitals. I played with some groups in the area. I played at a restaurant on 422, name of which I won't mention, and it's not there anymore. But I had so much experience. In 1977, I joined the Navy, and I was a pianist and French horn player with the Naval Academy Band in Annapolis, Maryland. Navy Band in 1980, I auditioned for the Commodores. I could go on from there, but maybe we'll kind of save that a bit for later if you wish.
You have had, as you were just starting to tell us about, quite an impressive career as a piano player and as a composer. Um, so I'd love to hear more about your career, both your time in the Navy bands and then also your post-retirement career.
The 3 years that I spent in the Naval Academy Band were, well, I was the assistant principal horn with the concert band, and it was a great organization, tremendous players. and I was also the pianist with the big band jazz ensemble, the Next Wave. And I did a lot of solo engagements at the superintendent's quarters, superintendent of the Naval Academy, and various functions around the academy. We played tons of concerts in town. The big band toured quite a bit. In '79, they were going to start a rock band for in support of the midshipmen, and it was called the Electric Brigade. And it was such a cool group, and we just kind of hit the ground running. And in 1980, the piano spot opened up in the Commodores. I auditioned for that, won that audition. I was in the Commodores as pianist, and for a good while as leader and pianist. And I wanted to break away from that. They started another rock band in the Navy band in DC. There's a funny story with that, which I can relate to you later, but I was, they said, we need a rock band. And I said, yes, I agree with you 100%. See ya. And I walked out. and, and a couple of days later, the leader called me back in. He says, I don't think you understood what I was telling you. I said, yeah, I did actually, but go ahead. Whatever you want, I'll do. And we started this other band, they called it a contemporary music ensemble. It was a rock band to me because we played rock and roll music, which was really cool because I don't think I've ever been one style or the other. It's music to me. And the music is either good or it is not good.
Hmm.
And I refuse to be associated with any organization that did not purvey good music.
Fair
That's where
enough.
it is. And it was a tremendous, oh, what a fabulous group. It's called the Cruisers. It was named after the ship. The guitar player was with Ray Charles for about 10 years, Kenny Carr. The bass player, Ben Grant, was just a tremendous writer, vocalist, bassist. The drummer, John Parsons, was one of the finest jazz drummers I've ever worked with. I keep saying jazz people, but this really was a rock band. And the
Hmm.
singer, John Fisher, was just, whatever style you needed, he did, and he did it incredibly well. And I could not go on without mentioning the name of Pete Checkeye, who was our sound technician, who had everything down pat. And, we just had a ball.
Yeah.
And then I was in the concert band for the remaining 8 years of my career as composer, arranger, and pianist. And that was I thought it was going to be, well, I was in concert bands during my life. Here we go. And it was totally different. And so really nothing is ever the same. You go from group to group, and it just changes. And the years with the concert band were just fabulous. And if you said, well, which one do you place on top? I don't think I could give you an answer.
Nice.
I had such a remarkably great time with all of them.
Yeah, that sounds just like an amazing collection of experiences.
Plus, let me toss this in. I did a lot of playing at the White House,
Mm,
receptions, dinners. Now, the Marine Band does the vast majority of the work there.
right.
But I got called a lot. White House, Vice President's quarters, Secretary of Defense, and they're not all, stoic, real stiff engagements. They're relaxed gigs. I
Oh,
mean, and those people are. A lot of folks would say, well, what are they like? They're people.
mm,
They
hmm.
have a job to do that I would not want to do because there is such an unbelievably phenomenal amount of responsibility. And Not that I'm afraid of responsibility, but yeah, that's getting up there. And
Yeah.
and they're normal people. I mean, I can't ever say that anyone was not wonderful to me.
Mm, that's
Absolutely
amazing.
wonderful.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they're wonderful people.
You have since retired from the Navy, but you are still very busy in your work. What all have you been up to recently?
Well, I retired from the Navy in July of 2008, and I was working with a group that did. It was a actually he and I were in the Commodores together. Uh, Scott Ragsdale is like one of the great writers in my mind. And he had a tremendous group, and we played around DC, Northern Virginia, New York City, and I worked with him for about, oh, I guess about a year, 2 years, 2 years, I suppose. And then I got a call from Tom Groth, who was, when I knew Tom, I did my student teaching for Tom.
Mm,
And you know Tom, I'm
I
sure.
know Tom, yes.
And Tom was the band director at Boardman High School. The gentleman who was the dean of the Dana School of Music when I was there, Don Bio, he was at the Midwest Band and Orchestra Convention in Chicago in 2007, which was my last time to play there.
Yes.
And the band played four pieces that I'd either arranged or composed, which was great. I mean, I didn't ask for that, but it was just such a kick for me that they did that. And I saw him afterwards, and he was walking around the restaurant area. I saw him, and we talked for a good while. I hadn't seen him since 1975 when I graduated. And he said, "You know, I'm going to talk with Tom Groth. I think you should write something for the Packard Band." And maybe 6 months later, Tom called me and said, "Would you consider doing something?" Well, yeah. And so he commissioned me to write something for, it was an anniversary concert of the Packard Band. And I wrote a piece called Foundation, which was based on the hymn, How Firm a Foundation. And it went over very well. Tom liked it, the band liked it, and it would just kind of went on from there. I'm still writing for the Packard Band, which is a just a kick to write for.
Yeah,
It's great having carte blanche to just write whatever you want. I mean, within reason, of course. When you
of
say,
course, of
well,
course.
I think I want the clarinets to play this ridiculous figure, and they do. I might get a couple side glances, but oh well. Uh, and that was in 2009. Uh, Maybe October, I think, of 2009, shortly after talking about that with Tom, I got a call from a gentleman from Concord, New Hampshire, Clayton Poole. Clayton goes by the name of Skip. Skip runs two bands in New Hampshire. One is called the New England Wind Symphony, and the other is the Capitol Jazz Orchestra. Now, these two bands are staffed by players from New York City, Boston, you name it. They're all phenomenal players all the way around. And he said, we are going to do, or we do concerts, every, quite a few, but the one in particular that he was asking about was for a holiday concert. And and this was very, very unique. He said, we have a soprano, a bass baritone voice. We have a violin, harpist, and a piper, bagpipes.
Ooh.
And I thought, wow. And wind ensemble, yes. Oh boy, what do we do here?
Huh.
So, no, I don't ever shy away from a challenge. And he said, what I want is to do something to something of Gift of the Magi. I don't know if you're familiar with that short story.
Yes.
I think the pseudonym is O. Henry. I don't know what his real name is. You
Yeah, I don't
probably
either, but
do.
I've forgotten it. I'm sure I did at one point, and I'm sure my
And
English teachers are frowning at me right now, but
well, the gist of the story is she doesn't know what to get for him for Christmas. He doesn't know what to get for her for Christmas. The opening words reading it are $1.87. That's all she had in her purse. So I called the piece 187.
Mm.
And I used the numbers 187, and it could have been major seven or minor seven. Here we go with geekery. But I used that for the sub, for the thematic material for the song. And if you play it in the wrong rhythm, it sounds like a song from a musical, which I can't mention, otherwise I get in trouble, I suppose, although I'm not playing it. Uh, I thought, well, I'm going to have to change the rhythm of this. And so I wrote lyrics to the song, and it was all about the two people. She bought him uh, a
The
new,
the chain for
yeah,
his
yeah,
watch.
chain fob,
Yes,
yes, as they called it. Well, he sold his watch in order to buy her like a pearl or
the
whatever.
comb for her
Yeah, yeah,
hair.
exactly.
Yes.
Yes. And so when all was said and done, neither had she had her hair cut and
Hmm.
sold her hair. And all said and done, neither one could use what the other bought for them. And and so that was the gist of it. It was about it was like three or four movements, and I featured the wind ensemble, and I featured the bagpiper and the harpist and the violin, and it worked out very well. And I thought, well, gee, this was great, and move on from here. And he has called me every year since. Ensuing years, I started playing piano with the Capitol Jazz Orchestra and writing for them. I was up there like three or four times a year. I absolutely love Concord. I love New Hampshire.
Hmm.
And well, 2 or 3 years ago, I had to stop playing because of a couple nerve issues. And
Hmm.
I don't want to be the one to sit there on stage and struggle through it. So I've been focusing on writing, which has increased a lot actually
Yeah.
since I stopped playing. And and I teach applied composition at the Anne Arundel Community College. I was teaching piano, and a lot of my students have gone on to other music institutions, and they've done well, and that's been an incredibly rewarding thing.
Yeah.
And I'm probably talking too much, so you go ahead for now.
Sure. You're not talking too much, but we can move on to the next question. I would love to know, how did you meet Dr. Gage?
I knew his name. I'd heard Tom Groth speak so well and so highly of him. And a lot of the folks in the Packard band, I went to college, I went to college with.
Hmm.
And my first associations with him as a writer, some of the faculty from the Dana School of Music were members of the band. And it was kind of it was different having the former dean sitting in the band, and I'm telling him how I want things played.
Oh,
And
better you than me. I couldn't do it, I don't think.
and we always joked about that afterwards. But I'd always heard about. Do you mind if I say Steve? I mean,
You can say
it was
Steve,
always
yeah.
Steve and Jerry. And I think by email, he sent me an email and said, listen, you're coming up. Why don't we get together for coffee and just talk? And so we did. And, he was an incredibly amicable person. And we talked about music. We talked about careers. We talked about our children. We talked about everything. And when we got to the first rehearsal, which was on a Thursday,
Mm.
uh, I we just went through our pieces and our music and what we were going to do, and everything was fine.
Yeah.
He was such a wonderful person to be with and to talk to, and we I think we really connected right off the bat, and so that's really how I first got to meet him.
Yeah, that's great. So we mentioned it at kind of the beginning of the interview, and I would love to kind of dig a little bit deeper. This piece that you've written,
Hmm.
"We are, for upon their shoulders we stand." You wrote that specifically uh, for uh, for the Steve Gage Legacy concert, and you're going to come guest conduct for us. Uh,
Yes.
and so I would love to hear more about the piece, the writing of the piece, I guess what it means to you to come conduct your piece.
Let's see. This was in June, maybe, of 2024. Dr. David Blond sent me an email and said, "Well, here's what we're doing. Would you consider writing something for the concert?" And I was incredibly honored. I thought, well, yeah, sure. In July, I think I really started getting into the writing part of it. And the title sort of came first.
Hmm.
I usually work the other way around.
I was going to
Everything
ask,
is
is that normal for you, or is it
no, no.
okay?
I
Yeah.
usually, everything is usually finished, and I think, well, I can't call this title, and and that's even if I make it look real pretty, I can't call it title. And I was I was attending a retirement ceremony, and what the person retiring said was, "I'm able to do what I do." And this is a phrase that it is not my original phrase. I don't know whose it is, but it alludes to I'm able to do what I do because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. I
Mm,
think that's closer to what the original is.
yeah.
And so when I thought about it, I thought, well, Steve Gage has had such an incredible influence on so many people. And I mean, he had a huge influence on me. I did not study with Steve. I was not one of his students, but he had a huge influence on me. So I thought, here we are. And I probably said that 100 times before it finally settled in. And I said, we are. Oh,
Mm,
well, maybe that's a start. And then I remembered that phrase and I thought, for upon their shoulders we stand. And for me, it was I thought in my mind I was reflecting the feelings of his students toward
mm,
him, but I couldn't get away from thinking, well, he taught at Dana, and there's so many of us who studied with other folks at Dana. I mean, Bob Fleming, Tony Leonardi, Bill Slocum, Lois Hopkins, Mark Walker, Doc Walker, God bless him. I learned so much about harmony and theory from him. He was remarkable. So I thought, for upon their shoulders we
mm,
stand.
hmm.
And I cleared it with everybody. I think you remember that. I sent
Yes.
that in and said, here's what I want to title it. And I thought it was only proper to do that.
Yeah.
And so that's how I came up with the title. Okay, the piece. What did I use for the piece? Just like the song or what I wrote, the piece that I wrote for the New England Wind Symphony 187. I thought, well, what in the name is there that I can use somehow as thematic material? Numerically, what do we have? And right in front of me were four notes,
Yeah.
G, A, G, E. So if you play G, A, G, E in a certain rhythm, it sounds like a Christmas carol.
Yes, it does.
And I
Something
thought,
I did myself in piano lessons a few times.
yeah, yeah. And so I thought, well, I can't use that rhythm. And I kept toying around with it, and I came up with actually the inspiration for using GA and then in whole notes, and then a slow interlude just to kind of bring that together, and then GE. That was pretty much inspired by Appalachian Spring Suite. In no way
Mm,
did I copy
right.
any of those themes. I stayed away from all that. Everything I do is completely original. Uh, but I thought, well, this is how I'm going to start out. And so I started it with that, and then just developed it thematically, rhythmically, harmonically, melodically, etc. I think the clarinets really started off in a pretty brisk fashion. Instead of booty, I don't have perfect pitch, so don't hold me to the pitches. Beady, and then there's the interlude. Beady, and then another interlude in the brass. They do that only twice, probably eight times as fast. And it's still the theme, but it's developed rhythmically, etc. And it goes on from there. The middle section, and this is a part of Steve that I came to know, and I've dealt with and had occasion to work with a lot of folks, and a lot of them are, I don't have anything ill to say about anyone. Even if I did, I wouldn't. So I don't, because I don't want to. That's just not the way to go. But they're very closed. They're very closed. But Steve was very open about a whole lot of things. I remember one night the Packard Band was doing a concert wherever. I don't even remember if it was summer, fall, Christmas. I don't know. But I had done some writing for the band, and Steve called and left a message on my cell phone. And he said, I just wanted to tell you how much this means to the concert, how beautiful it is, and what it means to the band, what it meant to the audience. That just really touched me, you know? And so the middle section was a piece that was a song that I wrote when I was playing piano and playing with the faculty jazz quintet at the Anne Arundel Community College, which was just a marvelous quintet. I called it Elegy, which I thought was absolutely appropriate. And it was a very, very, oh, the other thing was Steve mentioned that he really appreciated the space that I gave the music.
Mm.
It could be very thick and very forceful, but then come down to almost nothing and be very sparsely orchestrated. So I thought that was the appropriate song for the middle, and it starts off with piano and solo trumpet. I'm not exactly sure who's playing the solo part, but it's a very, very slow bossa nova. And instead of having a drum set, I'm just using four separate Latin instruments: shaker, Cuero, cabasa, and although triangle isn't normally associated with being a Latin instrument, I wanted something different. And I thought, well, I think triangle is going to be very, is going to work very well here. And it's very simple. And it, for a lot of reasons, instead of having a definite ending, I just let everything taper down to where harmonically, form wise, everything is just feels so suspended. And I thought this is appropriate. This is what it should be. And oddly, that very sparse part of it took the longest to write.
Mm.
It's for me, I don't know if anyone would agree with me, any other writers would agree. Uh, Writing huge sections, thickly orchestrated, loud, and bombastic, that comes easily. Writing something really quiet and with with I'm not sure I can even come up with the right words, but something is that really reflects on someone's life. That was the toughest part to write. Then the third part is a recap of the first section. And oh, yeah, I forgot about this. Just before the Latin section starts, you will hear a section that kind of sounds like Mars,
Mm.
which it isn't. It's I again use those four letters, Gage, but I state them rhythmically
Mm.
in very dissonant fashion, and it's Morse code. I had to learn Morse code when I was sailing a lot.
Of course.
And so I thought, yeah, this is going to
Yeah.
work, even if I'm the only one that gets it, which I'm sure I'm not.
Right.
Well, now you know, so you
Well, now I know, and anyone who watches our interview knows.
exactly. And so again, the third section is a recap, and that's pretty much how the piece itself came about. What it means to me is that here is a person who has given really his career to everyone. He has given of himself to his students, to the university, to the School of Music, to his family, everybody. And that really impressed me and that really stayed with me. And so that's what the entire piece means to me. And I hope that the audience understands that. I hope they walk away from the concert and think, well, not walk away, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I, I hope that when the concert is over, they think, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I will probably, hopefully, I don't, I mean, they're not there to hear me talk. They're there, the audience is there to hear the music. But I might allude to that
Yeah.
briefly so that they get that part of it.
Yeah.
And so that's what that's about.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for these insights into your piece. It's been really great to hear about your career and your work and this composition that we'll be hearing soon. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your career, your time with Steve, uh, your time in Youngstown or with the Packard Band, or just anything at all?
I never heard Steve utter an untoward word about anyone. I would ask him questions about, well, when I'm doing this, what do you hear? He says, it has to be you. You can't ask
Mm.
anyone, what do you think? He said, it has to be you. And I know that that's what he was to so many of his students. I mean, when he passed away and I saw all those posts, I mean, people were just devastated when he passed on. I was devastated. I mean, he was such a great friend and a great influence. And so, having said that, his influence, Bill Slocum, Bob Fleming, Pelly, Tony Leonardi, Lois Hopkins, everybody, Mark Walker, they were all such phenomenal people. And again, just to wrap that part up, that's why I named it, that's why I entitled the piece what I did,
Yeah.
because to me it was about everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm still standing on their shoulders, trying to stay there.
An amazing group of people, for
Yes,
sure. Yes. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing. I know that I'm really looking forward to hearing your piece live and in person in Youngstown in May.
you're very welcome. And thank you for inviting me to do this.
To hear Jerry's piece and many other great work, come to the 2025 Mission Love Music Legacy Concert at Stambaugh Auditorium at 3 p.m. on Sunday, May 18th. Tickets are available on stambaughauditorium.com or at the door. To learn more about Mission Love Music, visit missionlovemusic.org or find us on Facebook and Instagram.
I started gigging at a very, very young age. I was playing in clubs at an age when I shouldn't have been playing in clubs, but it was money
Hmm.
and it was experience. Uh, I thought, I don't want to be playing this music later in life. Oddly, it was that music that kept me working later in life.